I spent most of the day Wednesday at a workshop on developing emotional intelligence and resilience. If you haven't heard of emotional intelligence, it is sometimes called your EQ and seen in relationship to your IQ, although believed to make up a much larger portion of who you are. It is defined as the willingness and the ability to respond constructively to uncomfortable situations. We learned about our triggers, our hot buttons, those times when someone says or does something that makes us want to scream. We tried to figure out how to recognize within ourselves those times when we are getting annoyed and we want to lash out at another by interrupting the automatic system of trigger, reaction. These interrupters are meant to interrupt the cycle, to allow you time to reflect and then respond and not just react automatically. It can be as simple as feeling your stomach clench or your heart race, or noticing that your fists are turning white as you're squeezing them as hard as you possibly can, and remembering to take a deep breath, or count to 10, or draw a smiley face on your notepad before you respond. The interrupter that jumped out at me was tap into your best, most important values and beliefs. Reaffirm your commitment to always treat others with respect. Live into your best self. As I listened to many in the workshop discuss this item and talk about how difficult that is in the heat of the moment, saying words such as easier said than done, I recognized that this was a beautiful illustration of one of the dilemmas of being a Unitarian Universalist. What happens when the beauty of Unitarian Universalism smacks into the wall of reality? Our children and teens are well aware of this tension that lives in our faith. The visions and the dreams that we give them as they are growing do not always prepare them for the inevitable suffering and pain they will experience in their own lives. Howard Welsh, a UU Vietnam veteran, described his lack of preparation for the horrors of war. He felt his church had let him down by focusing only on its ideals. Our children suffer terribly, he says, because of their idealism when they are faced with what is really going on in the world. Just as I felt when I was drafted into the U.S. military, they feel unprepared and, in a sense, betrayed. They see their UU faith as being irrelevant to the struggles of a cruel society. In a personal interview, Welsh underlined the importance of helping children and teens face the walls in our society. What will they do, he asked, when their idealism comes face to face with war, injustice, poverty, and other intractable social problems? These realities exist, and we need to be prepared for them. So let's look at our visions and our dreams for a moment. Who are we? What do we believe? We believe in the essential goodness of all humankind, and we translate this sense of goodness into a view that we all have the possibility of becoming our best selves. We strive to raise our children to be caring, compassionate, and generous people who live with a spirit of gratitude and respect for all. We believe in justice, equity, compassion, treating all people fairly, not just tolerating those who are different, but respecting, accepting, affirming, and honoring them in all their beauty and uniqueness. We include and welcome all among us. We try to make it a habit to find and lift up the good in others, letting go of judgments and finding the spark of life within all of us, and within that spark, a connection. We recognize the rights and the feelings of others, and we use this recognition to guide our behavior. Practicing radical hospitality with all we come in contact with is a powerful guide for us to learn truly peaceful living. At the heart of our religious tradition is the idea of questioning, seeking, wondering, exploring, and even challenging our minds when new thought arises, new ideas emerge, new possibilities evolve. We find ways to affirm and encourage curiosity, knowing that questioning is part of our human quest to understand the world. We believe religious authority lies within each individual. Together we draw inspiration from many sources: the wisdom of the world's religions, science and reason, the teachings of the earth, and our own direct experience of mystery, wonder, joy, and beauty. Our respect for the interdependent web of all existence calls us to be caretakers of the earth. We live out our duty through gardening, recycling, conserving energy, using alternative energy, all we can do to actively care for our planet. We believe in speaking up, in standing on the side of love, in standing up for justice, being a part of the democratic system, no matter how broken and flawed it may be, examining our own conscience and using our voice and our vote to confront oppression and oppressive ideas. We sing hymns of love and freedom, of building a land where we bind up the broken, where we turn the world around, where justice shall roll down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. And then we leave this place. We leave this community of the Spirit, this fellowship of hope, goodwill, dignity, and worth, this place of justice and peace, and we enter into a world of despair, disappointment, injustice, intolerance, and pain. We walk into a world full of, as the liberal theologian Walter Rauschenbusch named, religious bigotry, mob spirit, greed, economic exploitation, and corruption of our systems of justice. And what do? We could say this is where our Unitarian Universalist rubber meets the road, where we prove our mettle, where we show that we are made of stronger stuff. We could admit that this is hard. We could give up. We could give in to the culture that surrounds us, believing that change is impossible, that the problems are bigger than us, even us collectively. Come on, what could we possibly do? Those dreams and visions are lovely for a Sunday morning, but they really don't bring much to bear on the rest of the week. When faced with the brutal realities of a world that is not healed by our efforts, of a world not filled with justice and equity, but violence and hatred, we could choose to rest in the words of Macbeth when he says of this life, "Out, out, brief candle. Life is just a walking shadow, a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage and is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." It might be wonderfully dramatic if you tend toward the dramatic, sitting in the shadows of war, violence, poverty, hunger, and regret, thinking about the dimming of one's bright candles and bemoaning the fate of a broken world. But that really isn't our thing. Remember that yous are generally a hopeful people. We're essentially optimistic. Even given the realities of our world, we generally do believe in the turning, that it can slant and bend toward justice. So where does it leave us? What do we do when we're faced with the big stuff, the isms, the racism, ageism, classism, sexism, ableism, all the isms that we can name? How do we tap into our best, most important values and beliefs, reaffirming our commitment to always treat others with respect and live into our best selves? It doesn't even have to be the huge stuff that makes us want to scream, to wonder where we've all gone wrong, to want to run and hide in bed all day. One of my favorite cartoons is called Baby Blues, and there's one that hung on our refrigerator for a very long time. In it, the mother's trying to do yoga while 2 of her 3 young children pepper her with questions. "What are you doing, Mom?" the girl asks. "Yoga," the mother responds, without opening her eyes or shifting her position. "Why?" the boy asks. "To help relieve stress." "Does it work?" asks the girl. "Is it working now? Maybe now? How about now? Now?" Then the boy asks, "Why is that vein bulging in your neck?" In that moment, the beauty of what we believe hits the reality of who we are, who we share our lives with, and the truth about the days in which we are living. Now, in the far Khasi hills of northeast India, there are some indigenous Unitarians. Their history illustrates the creative way they, as a people who were colonized, turned their world around. Before the British came in the 1850s with their soldiers, traders, and missionaries, the Khazis practiced their own ancient tribal religion. It was quite unrelated to Hinduism. The British set out to convert the whole region to Christianity, setting up mission schools. One of the first graduates of the secondary program was a brilliant young man named Hajam Kisser Singh. Asked to speak at his graduation, he said, "We Khasis should probably thank you, British, for introducing us to the spiritual and moral teachings of Jesus. After all, if nothing else, this tells us how you tell yourselves you should treat other human beings." Now, just a few questions. Why do you want us to believe things about him he never spoke about? Would it not be enough just to treat one another as all children of the one God he called Father, that others call Mother, that our Khasi tradition calls Blai or Spirit, that Hindus have so many names for, that the Muslims call Allah? Would that not be enough? The missionaries, hellfire and brimstone Calvinists from Wales, said he was a heretic of the worst kind, a kind they had back in Wales. Why, what he was saying made him a Unitarian. To which Hajam Kisser Singh replied, "Then I have something else to thank you for. It is never good to be all alone in life. Better to have spiritual partners. Unitarian? You have an address for them, maybe?" The amazing thing to me about the Unitarian Union of Northeast India is that it's not the product of mission work. It is an indigenous movement that looked for partners. I have found the model of partnership to be one of the strongest around when it comes to facing reality, to coping in a world that has differing views and values, and a real-life way of engaging with those who are different in a loving, respectful way. 8 years ago, when I first met our Unitarian partners in Transylvania, my life was changed and my hope restored. Here were a people who had been through so much. Years of oppression, starvation, extreme hardship under a communist regime, who kept believing in the power of their faith, in the goodness of one another, in the promise and the possibility of a better future in spite of the world they lived in. They gathered week after week to sing their hymns, tell their stories, remember who they were, who they could be, and dream of a different world. As we North American UUs gathered in their 800-year-old fortress church, we were people of a different language, a radically different culture, differing theologies, singing with them songs in Hungarian and in English, praying with them, listening to them pray for us. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I sang, grateful to have received back from them the determination of a hope that I needed not to lose. To meet the walls of reality, we need to hold on to that hope, to embrace the mission of partnership with others, bringing all the strength of our diverse cultures, languages, and creeds together to serve justice. Partnership requires a few things of us. It requires that we admit what we don't know. What we don't know about others, about what it is like to live in their world. Admit that we have much to learn, and admit that in many ways we will always be different. Building a world of justice and peace requires more good than we have, more work than we can do alone. We need to join forces with those who are like us and those who are very different from us, to find our commonalities, to find the values we share, to discover our common love, to allow justice to roll down like the waters and peace to be an ever-flowing stream. Now, closer to home, there are many ways this congregation partners with others in our community, ways that you too can become involved. There's our relationship with Moses, an organization whose current campaign is called 11 by 15 and is looking at alternatives to incarceration. Our partnership with the Salvation Army is working to ensure that no one is out on the streets in the coldest nights of this winter. We partner with Emmanuel Lutheran Church through the Road Home program to provide food and shelter to homeless families. We work with Grace Episcopal to feed breakfast and dinner to homeless men. We're going to Christ the Solid Rock Baptist Church to learn how to do these partnerships and what we need to know to do them well. And there's a very direct way that you can create a partnership that brings the beauty of Unitarian Universalism to bear on the reality in which we live, and that is through mentoring. Mentoring is a direct way for you to learn about and enter into the life of another individual's story, an individual who's different from you, who has much to learn and much to teach. Mentoring is a way to meet that wall of reality, not with a sledgehammer, but with an outstretched hand, one that is open to give and to receive. You can mentor an adult who's leaving the prison system and re-entering our society, or you can mentor a child in their lives. You can become a part of the life of a homeless teenager who's trying to navigate the difficult system of shelters, food pantries, and making it to school on time. Or mentor any one of the 600 children who are waiting for a big brother or big sister and need in their life an extra adult with an open heart and a listening ear. You can find out about all these and more at the social justice area right down in the Commons. In the 1940s, the Unitarian minister A. Powell Davies wrote these words: "There are times when I stand aside and wonder at the strangeness of our world. The years of all of us are short, our lives precarious. Our days and nights go hurrying on, and there's scarcely time to do the little that we might. Yet we find time for bitterness, for petty treason and evasion. What can we do to stretch our hearts enough to lose their littleness? Here we are, all of us upon this planet, bound together in a common destiny, living our lives between the briefness of the daylight and the dark. kindred in this, each lighted by the same precarious, flickering flame of life, how does it happen that we are not kindred in all things else? How strange and foolish are these walls of separation that divide us? When I think of these things, I wonder. I wonder at the patience of God. While the dream still lives in our hearts, God waits. While the vision still shines in our eyes, God hopes. How long shall we keep God waiting? What dream lives in your heart? What vision shines in your eyes? How long are you going to wait to find a partner to help you make a new and different reality for our bruised and hurting world? We are a hopeful, optimistic people. Together, we know we can change things. That together just needs to be bigger than us. There are many out there waiting for our message of love, justice, compassion, and peace. How long are we going to keep them waiting?